Today we have two short stories, both by u/nkonrad. The first, Waging War for Fun and Profit. The second, War Unending. First story. The great galactic powers were gearing up for another of their wars. Being a routine and not typically costly occurrence, this concerned very few of the citizens on both sides. If anything, the atmosphere along the border regions of the galaxy's Orion arm was one of friendly rivalry, with bets placed on which side would conduct themselves with greater dignity and courage. It was an often debated aspect of these wars as to how and why they would officially begin. In the past, the reasons had been as varied as they had been insignificant. The Gavilan and their coterie would issue an ultimatum over some territorial infraction, or perhaps the Manaya or one of their client races would deem themselves dishonored and demand satisfaction. In effect, these wars amounted to little more than skirmishes. A handful of drones would be lost, or perhaps the crew of an unlucky escort, but nothing more. Fighting would last for several weeks, a handful of uninhabited rocks would change hands, and a peace deal would be composed, leaving both sides in no worse of a position than they had begun. Often, each side would gain from the war, as neighboring systems were absorbed into the various nations on either side, under the guise of protection from enemy action. Typically, this protection came in the form of outright annexation. It was a profitable way of conducting politics, one that fostered not only economic growth, but prevented technological stagnation. War was not the life and death struggle for dominance it had once been, as no civilized society was willing or able to pay the butcher's bill of a large-scale conflict. In this manner, the great nations of the galaxy received many of the technological and doctrinal advancements that could only come from war, while cheating death of the typical price it charged for such developments. The coming war would be somewhat different. This time there was a prize to fight over, one worth perhaps as many as 500 casualties, an unaffiliated planetary system, fully civilized and with a thriving economy. It was expected, no, it was known, that the winning side would take the world under their protective umbrella, and gain the use of its shipyards, mines, and farms. This was about the time where the great galactic powers were introduced to the concept of neutrality. The system's inhabitants, a mammalian race who called themselves humans, politely informed both sides that they preferred not to belong to any larger political body, and were quite content with their neutrality. As usual, these declarations of neutrality were ignored. On the eve of war, a Manayan cruiser entered the system, and declared that Earth and her colonies were now under their protection against Gavilan aggression. The cruiser was politely, but firmly, told that violating human sovereignty was a poor excuse for protection. Besides, what good was a single cruiser? The cruiser's captain explained that it was the symbolism that mattered, and besides, no one really attacked with the intention of destroying ships or killing their crew. That would be inhumane. The Gavilan would respect the gesture of protection, and restrict their operations to designated combat zones, where populated areas wouldn't fall into the line of fire. The humans apologized profusely upon hearing this. Regrettably, they explained, they'd been under the impression that other races waged war the same way they did, with the intent to destroy the enemy's capacity to retaliate to such an extent that they could never wage a war again. They suggested that the captain evacuate his ship before the missiles they'd fired at the start of the conversation destroyed his ship and wiped out his crew. In what would lead to the single greatest loss of life and materiel in any galactic war of the past 5 centuries, the Manayan captain refused to launch escape shuttles. All 6,000 of the cruiser's complement were killed in seconds. This unprecedented slaughter would be condemned by both sides. The deaths of those 6,000 were unnecessary and inhumane. Official statements vilifying human barbarity were issued, and demands were made for reparations to the Manayan government and the families of the deceased. Earth suggested that if the Manayans were so set on having reparations, they should nut up or shut up and fight us for them. No reparations were ever paid. Second story, War Unending. There is no singing in the streets. The war is going well. Every week, good news arrives from the front. On one front, a newly captured world. On another, a decisive victory in orbit. In the core worlds, another cruiser has been released from the shipyards. It is a season for celebration, but our newest allies do not celebrate. Armored soldiers stand watch on street corners beside civilian police. Shuttles and gunships dart across Cairo, delivering war material and VIPs. Tracked vehicles are parked protectively around industrial sites. Far above, a frigate circles the city, watching the skies. A politician has brought me on tour of a munitions factory. The humans are new to our cause and hope to impress us with their industrial capacity. They have been entirely successful. This site once constructed engines for civilian cargo transports. Now it produces missiles. My guide is offering details about the factory. It employs 4,000 human technicians, supervisors, and engineers. The construction process itself is handled by machines. Every day they produce 40,000 warheads for naval use, and 600 times as many smaller missiles for their armored infantry and marines. This city is home to 4 other munitions factories, each with a similar output. Just outside the city limits, armor and vehicles are produced and tested. On its own, this town is capable of equipping and maintaining an army. If I strain my eyes and look past the frigate, I can see the blinking lights of the North African dry dock. Yesterday, it launched 6 ships. Today, the same. Tomorrow, we'll bring 6 more. There are 9 other dry docks above this planet. 4 more are being constructed. All have a similar output. They call their ships destroyers. They are smaller than our cruisers and carry fewer weapons. Their shields fail quickly under concentrated fire. Their armor is thin, and they rely excessively on point defenses. Their only true strength is numbers, but they are cheap and quick to build. Our enemy destroys them by the dozens. The humans build them by the hundreds. There are 2 other inhabited planets in this system, 5 moons and hundreds upon hundreds of stations, outposts, and habitats. All are fully devoted to military production. 30 billion souls, wholly devoid of any purpose save one: victory or annihilation. In truth, I am afraid. I fear for our enemy. They have never faced such single-minded dedication, nor such ferocity. No one has. They do not allow retreat, where other commanders might allow the enemy to flee, and in doing so preserve his own ships. The humans encircle the enemy and push forward. The enemy is offered the choice between unconditional surrender and complete destruction. I fear for our souls. War is all we know. It permeates our culture. It defines our seasons, our holidays, and our spirituality. We have fought the enemy on equal footing since time immemorial. The struggle of war forges us into greater beings. In an effort to surpass our foe, we have made advancements once thought impossible. We broke the light barrier. We eradicated disease. We bred ourselves to be stronger, smarter, bolder. We have created wonders beyond any imagining, all in the name of victory. I believe that victory will arrive sooner than any had thought possible. What will remain for us, I wonder, when we finally plant our flag on the surface of their homeworld? What will we have left to strive for? I fear them. We have warred incessantly since before their ancestors developed writing. We have struggled against the enemy around thousands of stars. There are still many among them who remember a time before they joined our conflict. And still, they surpass us at every turn. They do not share our ideals or our culture, yet somehow, they dedicate themselves to this endeavor with a tenacity that puts ours to shame. Our strategists view them with caution. They are a necessary ally, and must always remain our friends. How could anyone hope to compete with them at warfare? As long as we are united, we are safe. I am not so optimistic. Soon, the war will be over. The fleets will be decommissioned. Their soldiers and sailors will return home. Their factories will return to civilian production. Having seen their knack for conducting war, I fear that they will be equally competent at conducting peace.